All right. Welcome back to another episode of HipPodHedz. I am No Sage. Novak is the co-host as always. We're back and we brought a special guest, my guy from way back from the 90s hip hop. Man, like No Name, like I honestly feel like you're the one who got me into hip hop like um wholeheartedly, you know what I'm saying? Like we both, graduated, what was like 97, right? In high school.
97, yeah.
You
Yep.
know what I mean? And you were the first one to put me on an actual mixtape, an actual tape. And we were like, recording demos
Yeah.
for fun. And I just remember like the first time I ever spit a freestyle rhyme over a mixtape, it was in your mom's basement. So I mean, I gotta give you like much flowers for that. But not only just introducing me to the hip hop culture in a lot of ways, I felt like you always kept your pulse on, what was hip hop and what it meant to you. I pulled something out. I was trying to pull out that tape. I couldn't find it, but I'm not sure. Was this one of the CDs that you gave me?
I did, yeah.
You
Yeah.
know what I'm saying? So, bro, like
Yeah. You
like
still
real talk,
have it.
dude. I got a lot of these CDs, but when I found this one, like with the quicks just a moment ago. I know y'all can't see it on the podcast, but basically every time No Name writes, it's like a graffiti artist is writing it. I just remember like some people say like, like you dress hip hop or you talk hip hop is like No Name was always like writing hip hop. Like every time you're writing your rhymes down, I don't even know if you turned in your like high school like term papers like this, bro. I was like, man, God, No Name is just oozing hip hop left and right.
A lot of people used to ask me if I wrote, like, man, are you a writer? Like, but I used to always like, I don't know if it was purposely or it was just like, just I used to always like try to emulate, like graph writers
Right.
whenever I wrote. So yeah, it just came natural. So
No, I love that. And I just love that every part of you was like embracing hip hop culture and um, even to the way you spelled No Name when you were DJing with your vinyl collections and whatnot, DJ No Name Naim, like it just gives me positive vibes whenever I think about it. So yeah, man, welcome to the show. We
yeah,
appreciate
thank you for having me.
Happy
I
to have you.
appreciate it.
yeah, I mean, I don't want to like wax poetic too much because like just having you is just an honor. But like the last episode we had my cousin Fresh, who you remember and from way back in the days too. And the last
Yeah,
episode he was talking about how I sort of passed the hip hop culture down to him with my mixtapes, right? When I was sort of like blending tapes and giving in him um my slice of hip hop at that time, what I was vibing on. And like as much as he was kind of like telling me how much he respected me passing the culture down to him, I was like thinking, man, I was thinking about No Name. I'm like, man, like No Name was the guy who did it for me because I wasn't blending. I was literally just having like two tape cassette decks and trying to like stop and pause and add in another song. Like No Name was like giving me blends of like this CD and like mad tapes and like other like CDs that I still have, to this day. So man, just like, just mad shout out to you, bro.
oh, thank you. I
Awesome.
appreciate that though.
So this is your sensei. It makes sense.
Yes, indeed. So I know you both are gonna go vinyl crazy and vinyl you're gonna geek out on the vinyls, but I think before we dive into that part of the hip hop culture, I definitely wanted to kind of touch on De La Soul, obviously the passing of Trugoy the Dove. Like just wanted to kind of like bring that up as far as like a topic for us to kind of chop it up about. Um, I think no, then you kind of had some things you wanted to bring up as far as like maybe some of their underrated songs or something along those
Oh, you
lines.
want to start with that?
Yeah, we can jump right in. I mean, obviously there's like
Well,
so
for
much
sure.
to talk about with
Yeah.
De La Soul, but I definitely wanted to kind of like hone in on some of the things that you thought that was definitely underrated because they got a lot of gems, they got a lot of things in
They
the
have a lot. They have a
Right.
lot, like it was hard. It was difficult to narrow it down, like, but I just remember, just collecting vinyl, hearing like a lot of white labels, listening to college radio. I picked up on some stuff, that I otherwise wouldn't have heard. Shout out to 89.3 Northwestern. I remember on Sunday nights, I think they had a hip hop show from like 10 to 2, and that was like Thursday. I think it was like 11 to 2. And a lot of times I used to stay up for both of those shows. I remember I would come to school, bloodshot eyes, falling asleep. Like it was worth it, from the type of music that you would hear. You would hear a lot of like demos, unreleased tracks that you could only hear off that radio station because there was no YouTube. There was no internet pretty much. So that was like pretty much the only place you could hear it. If you stayed up and just listen to it like every week.
Hey, correct me if I'm wrong. Were they even like? I don't think they were always playing clean versions neither. I think sometimes like there'd be
No, they would play the curse versions,
right.
And I think explicit version, as they would say. And I think some people started complaining, I remember. And then they would have to add like some sort of like disclaimer. They started doing that after a while. Like I forgot what they said. The lyrics do not represent Northwestern or something. They but anyways, besides the point, underrated tracks. First one I got on my list is Stay Away. Came out around like 90, like 96, 97. Pete Rock produced. I think it had the two members of I. I got that. I think that was a white label. I think they didn't release it officially, I believe, because I think it had like a Michael Jackson sample that they couldn't clear. But Pete Rock, like I kind of wish going back to that song, I wish they would have worked with him. Because I know they worked with Pete Rock on their last album, and the Anonymous Nobody, for that track Memory Of. Which I think is probably like, I think that's the best song on that album.
I mean, that's the Kickstarter album base. That's
the Kickstarter. Yeah. I think I think that's one of my favorite ones on that album. Just just the vibe, just the musically, the lyrics, everything was on point on that song.
It
Stay
flows.
Away. Yeah. Have you heard that one? Have you heard Stay Away?
Yeah, I've heard Stay Away. Stay Away. It's off that Pete Rock. It's a white label, Pete Rock. I tried to buy that from somebody. They were talking like $45 for the white label on that, so it's very pricey. But yeah, it's nice. You got Robbo on that track.
Correct. Yeah, Robbo. The other guy, Grap Lover. I. Like I said, they one album, I think, right? And then
and that was it. That's Pete Rock and Friends. Yeah, that's Pete Rock and Friends, I believe, right? Is that white label, that one? Yeah, it was nice. It just, the problem with like Pete Rock, you get the Tommy Boy, and so much good music out there. But Tommy Boy, I felt like had to put a cap on De La a little bit. They gotta force them not to make music, and you always see them at festivals and stuff, performing their stuff. But you're right, there's so many mysterious tracks out there with De La. You think about, we had a big gap from 3 Feet High and Rising, and then it went dark for a minute because the first time I saw him was on MTV, and I was like, "Who are these guys?" That classroom scene is what I thought high school was going to be like. When you watch how everybody interact in the classroom. You saw Plug 1, Plug 2, and Plug 3 for the first time, and you're like, "I need that haircut. I need to figure out where they get the medallions from." I mean, that's the first time we saw part of the native tongues in that situation. It's crazy. Like, that was like hip hop history. When we saw that video is what really got me into hip hop, to be honest with you. DMC and everything else was around, but that's the older generation. You know, like De La to me was like the generation that opened me up to MTV, to be honest with you.
Okay, so I got the another track is
Wait, hold up. No, before you bring up the next one, I just wanted to quickly riff on like,
sure.
I love that you brought up Pete Rock, because you were the first one to introduce me to Pete Rock. Even like I, you know what I'm saying? Like all these like hip hop, like flash in the pan moments where it's like, you know, MCs drop one album, even drop like one or two tracks and kind of disappear, but still are kind of like highly regarded as hip hop excellence. Like I think like in a lot of ways, and I think we're gonna get into this conversation in some ways, like De La was like the linchpin of a lot of that mysteriousness of hip hop, but also like I don't want to say like they validated what hip hop was, but I think they were kind of like the hidden gems of what everyone knew what hip hop could be, right? So like I felt like somebody like Pete Rock to kind of work with them was like a validation, like, yeah, De La, you're dope. Like we definitely need to kind of like, you know, drop this. And I think a lot of artists have kind of done that with De La, with a lot of the collaborations in general.
You're right about that. No Sage in that situation. It's like it's a validation factor with them, and then it's also the fact that you know De La is the first conscious hip hop group. You think about that time period. It was X Clan, it was De La Soul, who they were conscious, but at the same time they were conscious academia. If you think about the way they rap, like you think about Stakes is High, right? That song is more relevant today than it was when it dropped. I was listening to that in the car one day. Life get all up in your ass. You got to work it out. And I'm like, I'm thinking about this. Like, man, it's like I don't want to be a grown up, but I'm hearing what De La saying to me right now. They were talking about growing up. Like, every album is like a period of time with them. You think about it. Like, 3 Feet and Rising, it's like grammar school. Then they went to high school. Then they went to college. So every album kind of evolved pretty much with them.
Yeah, I totally agree. What was the next one you had on your list? No name.
I got a few.
Man,
a track called "Sweet Dreams." Not a lot of people know it. It was a vinyl. It was from a vinyl only EP. I think it came out during the Stakes is High era. They kind of riffed on that "Sweet Dreams." What's that? That 180s. that 180s group. So I mean, that's another thing I liked about De La. I mean, they would keep it playful, but they would have a lot of times they would have like serious messages. Like for the first album was real playful. Second album, which I think is their best personally, they still had the playfulness in that one, but they also had like the serious themes. Like drug addiction. It's in there. What was it? Sexual abuse. Millie pulled the pistol on Santa. So there's, I think that's the power of De La. I mean, they can be playful, but they can also have like those little, real subliminal messages, those real life messages. That I think most groups wouldn't even go near at the time.
Think about the second album. That's when we got Black Sheep. So think about the B word song. I remember the first time I heard it, I was like, you hear it and you're like, because the way Black Sheep brought it was pretty hot, and then they kind of mutated. Then Prince Paul's also all over that album as well. I mean, De La Soul is Dead is the best album in my personal opinion.
Yeah, I agree. Oh yeah.
Hey, yeah, Novek, I want to double down on that too, because I was re-listening to all the albums this past week, and De La Soul's Dead is definitely, I feel like it's their masterpiece. I guess everyone would kind of like hunker down to any of those Prince Paul albums that the first three that he produced. But No Name, like going back to your second pick, man, like I was just like checking this track out. I've never heard it. I only played a quick bit of it just a moment ago, and yeah, you're right. They are playful with like the whole Eurythmics, like Sweet Dreams. I mean, type of things that Nas did, but Nas sort of just took the way the song was and just left it straightforward. De La, like you said, they kind of like put their own spin with it and made it playful. You made me think of, as I was re-listening to their whole like full-length albums, there's this track on AOI part 2, the Bionics one, I was like having a rough time. Like, where do I know this from? The track is called Simply Having. And
Yeah,
they literally
yeah,
stole the Beatles Christmas song, Simply Having a Wonderful
yeah,
Time or whatever, a feel good
yeah,
time,
yeah.
Christmas time. And I was like, it took me a hot minute. I'm like, where do I know this? But they sang it in a way that wasn't copycatting it in their own De La style. And I feel like my mind's just being blown right now because one, you're pulling all these like hip hop moments that are out of the crate, literally, because I have to kind of like think about them and even like play them later on after we're done with this conversation. But two, it's like, yeah, it's like De La, like, I think they sort of are unsung heroes in a lot of ways because I think people sort of put them in like the candy coated box of what hip hop is. But like when you dive in deep to what they really are, it's like, yeah, there's a lot of like realty, there's a lot of cruelty, but there's also like a lot of playfulness too, and musicality. I mean, yeah, like Novek, you're just saying it, like they're basically like hip hop academics in a lot of ways.
I mean, one thing that I noticed too, like recently listening to like the first and second albums, it's like I forgot that they were sued by the Turtles, for that for that first album, for that little 1 minute skit that they did. And then, like listening to the first and second albums in length, if you listen to the skits, like the first one, 3 Feet High and Rising, they always had like a beat behind, like the skit. But the second album, it was either silent or like they would just play these piano chops, off of this off of the skits. And I didn't realize that for like the longest. I'm like, it's like I guess when you get sued, like I don't know how many $1 million or 500,000, I guess it makes you like not sample. Like it's like they cut out all the samples, from those skits. And I don't know. I don't think it affected the album. I mean, the album was tight. It's still good. It's aged well too. De La Soul's dead.
What's your, I mean, off that second album, what you say is your, like, what's your go-to song on that second album right
Oh
now?
yeah, for sure is Ring Ring off that second album. And I mean, it's a great song, but I also have like memories of like, using it for my old tape answering machine at my family's house,
That's what I'm talking about. Living in
And I actually did it. I actually like took that little, the little portion of, hey, how you doing? Sorry you can't get through. Leave your name and your number, and I'll get back to you. So I actually like recorded that, on that little, that old school like voicemail, with the little cassette tape. And I actually kept it on there until my parents, of course, they made me remove it. But just like memories like that.
Your parents were essentially like the record
I think
label.
my boy too did the same thing. So we had it on there for like, I say probably 2 days before my parents said, get that off there. What is that? So I was like, so stuff like that, just like memories of doing that, and just, of course the song's great too. It's real catchy.
So you
It
basically
has the energy, it has the playfulness, musically it's great. But just like, like I think that's the power of De La, it's like, like listening to their music, it kind of takes you back to a certain place and time in your life. I think very few hip hop or musical groups can do that.
So your parents like didn't clear the sample, just like all the struggles that De La had to go through along the years. Like, yeah, I mean, it's kind of like it's kind of bittersweet to see like all the samples that they kind of got. I don't know if like attacked for is the right way to put it, but they definitely were a product of the hip hop culture, right? It's like there's nothing wrong with kind of taking bits and pieces of what's relevant to you to kind of like make a tapestry of your own. But when art and commerce collide, yes, there's something wrong with it, right? So like most definitely, like they were definitely one of the biggest victims of sampling in the bad way. I love how you said like you listen to their sound and it takes you to a different place. Like for me, re-listening to all their albums, like De La Soul's Dead is definitely, I would say objectively, is their masterpiece in my mind at the re-listen. And it's kind of dope how like now I was just almost trying to invoke that with the, you know, Hip Hop Is Dead. But like for me, like personally, like I think Stakes Is High is my favorite album because that's when I like discovered them, right? So it's like that's when I discovered hip hop around that era, and when that album dropped, that's probably the most that's the album that got the most plays for me. So it's like whenever I listen to that album, like that definitely takes me to the time and place where I kind of fell in love with the culture.
I think I read like it was like a source, maybe a source interview. I think when that Stakes Is High album came out, and I think after Balloon Mind State, I think it bombed. I don't think it did well. I don't think it sold, and so I think they were struggling. I mean, I don't know. What was it was still on Tommy Boy, right? Was Stakes Is High on Tommy Boy still?
They
I
were.
believe so.
I
Were
believe
they?
so. I
Yeah,
think
and
I think
so.
so, right? Yeah, yeah.
The brief thing that I did read about it was that Prince Paul did send De La beats, but they felt like their headspace at that time, they wanted to do a commentary of hip hop, and they felt like his beats wasn't matching like the serious tone of Stakes Is High. And so I think that's the only album that they fully produced on their own. Like I think they had like Jay Dilla, I think, on one of the beats, but like
Yes.
for the most part it was De La.
Yeah.
And I think that was kind of a crowning achievement in my eyes. But yeah, to your point, like commercially, no, it didn't do anything.
Yeah, Balloon Mind State, you know, and like and I think they were getting a lot of pressure from the label and also from I guess the state of like hip hop music at the time. You know, because I mean, you know, when that album came out, you know, you had Bad Boy was ruling, you know, Puff Daddy. So, you know, like I mean, hip hop was I guess was I want to just say commercial, it was becoming more commercial, but
Mhm.
you know, you had the overabundance of like hip hop and R&B tracks, which now when you listen to it, some are like actually really good. You're like, oh, that's not bad. But you know, at the time, you know, it's just like, you know, what's this rapper, you know, rapper and this like R&B singer, you know, it's like, why are we hearing this? Like, you know, what like why is this being played in the clubs? And then, you know, you got like really good hip hop not being played. So it's just like it's just that time period, you know, when that album came out. And I think a lot of real hip hop heads, you know, could I think they can relate to that album because I think they were feeling the same way, like the same frustration, you know, like with the music in general.
Yeah, they were super frustrated. Stakes Is High. I think also because artistic hip hop was dying at that point, or it was on life support. So, like, you know, when artists were telling stories, like, you know, you had Native Tongues, you had the Jungle Brothers, you know, you had all those groups, and everybody was conscious. You know, everybody was rapping about life, right? You know, sexism, racism, never rapping about things that mattered to them. Then Puffy came out and put a jogging suit on, and everybody's like, "Oh, I want to be happy and be shiny and jump up and down." Because you think about Stakes Is High, I agree with you on that one, No Say, because I love that album because most stuff got introduced to us. We
Mm,
got Common. We already knew about Common. He was Common Sense back then. We knew who he was, but he appeared on that album basically. Then you had John A. You had Zayn
mm.
also was around. So there was a lot going on with that album basically. I think that it was serious because that's the first album you had Dave actually singing and everything else on that album. So you know, he was, you know, he's very, Dave was very good at like telling the story. And I think that, you know, De La, that album, I think that album's important today because, like, you know, we said before, it's more relevant today because it was ahead of its time. It's like people wanted to just dance and be happy at that point in time. De La was like, if we don't make a good album, this might be the end of our career. That's why I felt stakes were high at that point because they had so much pressure to make Tommy Boy happy, made Tommy Boy more money. But Tommy
Mm.
Boy was looking for like, you know, I think who else was on Tommy Boy at that time? I think 90 by Nature had just popped up.
House of Pain.
House of Pain had popped
House of
up.
Pain had a hit, you know, they had a hit Jump Around, you know, so I think
Uh-huh.
that went platinum.
Super
So,
platinum. Yeah,
you know, so
they were filming it at that time. And then Jay Dilla, he did that opening track and he did a couple other things on there. So it kind of segued into like where we went with Most Def. Remember, Leaders of the New School was around
mm,
during that time period. So
yeah.
there was a lot of good hip hop. It's just that, it went from people rapping at parties to people being the party. That's what happened pretty much.
Yeah, and I definitely want to get back to No Name's list because I know he's got some hidden gems. I just briefly wanted to say Novak because you brought up Dave, and I know we definitely want to pay homage to
Oh,
his legacy. Like I I think it's unfair to always paint this picture, but my brain always goes there, right? But I think about the two MCs that usually are paired up together and that the chemistry that works, right? So it's like the whole like Jordan Pippen like dynamic, right? So
mm,
I don't have to go through the list, but obviously like Tribe, you got
Mhm.
Fife, who's the lyricist, and you got Q-Tip, who's a musician, right? And then it goes all the way down to like Outkast
mm.
and to EPMD. And re-listening to all these albums, like I didn't think about it until the It's So Easy track that like Dave was basically a musician, and then Pasanu's like basically saying, every word I say should be a hip hop quotable. Like he's definitely the lyricist, but they're both so musical that it's kind of always hard to kind of make that distinction because they both, even though they're playing in those lanes that I kind of painted unfairly, they still always love to kind of like collab and like do what's best for the track in all these like cases. I feel like.
You're right. You're right. I mean, they play off each other very well. It's that it's the whole Andre and Big Boy like relationship before that. Those guys, their chemistry is impeccable. I mean, you got Play Three in the background just watching as these two guys just going at it pretty much. But yeah, we found out that Dave was the creative one, and Paz was the MC. But the thing is, they played off either. Sometimes like good cop, bad cop. They used to swap roles on some of those albums.
Yeah, 100% too. And it is funny that Most Def was introduced on the Stakes is High album because obviously, him and Talib have a definitely similar dynamic as well. So I just always find it fascinating how like the hip hop duos kind of like play off each other in a lot of aspects. So yeah, No Name. What else did you have for us?
Oh yeah, yeah. I got a
Your hidden gems.
hidden gems. This was from I think a vinyl only release. It was called Clear Lake Auditorium.
Ah,
I believe this came out like 94, maybe 95. So a rough guess. It's called Shocking Female MCs with Fife. Very underrated cut. It shows like the battling side of De La, which during that period was non-existent. So a lot of I think I think they're underrated in terms of like lyricists because I think they could battle like with the best of them, But I think due to label politics or like what the general public wanted, I don't think they had an opportunity to show that side a lot. Like for the most part. I mean, they did, on certain albums like Stakes is High, but not too many. Not too many. I mean, what would you say? Maybe on the Red Man cut off
uh,
off AOI,
mm-hmm.
where they show like the lyricism a little bit more. I
They
think
were
for the
fun.
most part they don't get a chance. I mean, maybe they don't get the opportunity to show it as much as I like.
To kind of go back on, I definitely agree on the Redman track, AOI
Yeah.
one, but even the third album, Balloon, is the Ego
Uh,
Trippin' track off of that joint.
yeah, that's on there.
So it's like you definitely felt their artistry and you definitely felt them. um they can own like battle rap, but I think like again, like listening to their whole chronology, I felt like they're almost above it too, where it's like they don't necessarily have to pigeonhole themselves in one lane. It's like sometimes even in the track they kind of like evolve in one song as you're listening to it, so that it's kind of like, I mean, it's kind of brilliant to kind of like almost re-listen to a lot of these tracks and kind of like come to terms of what they were like. I think again, like when I'm not re-listening to them, I almost unfairly paint them into like the Jurassic 5 type of like sound, right? And I'm not, it's no shade that you're asking
Right.
but then sometimes when I just at first listen, I'm thinking about all this playful hip hop and like, you know, hey, you say 2 bars and you say 2 bars, and hey, let's all like hug and hold hands. But it's like when you listen to what De La is saying, it's like, man, how could I kind of like not even catch all these like pearls of wisdom they were kind of like throwing?
Because we were so worried about, you know, how they presented everything. You go back years later and listen to it, like the track with Guru, that's off Balloon. You know, that track Patty. It's like, you know, and Guru made them level up. So what happens is when they got on Redman on Ooh, Redman started it and they finished it. So it's like they felt his energy. I think sometimes with De La is that they're underrated because when their title tracks are solid, but you put a really good guest star on there, they just kill it. Because they see that star and they go up to that next level and they start spitting, man. They did the same thing on when you think about the track, the opening track Break of Dawn. So they did 2 samples. They sampled Smokey and Michael on that track. That's a hard clearance to get approved over there. But they were on fire because they got inspired by the artists that they sample on that one. It's pretty stellar. You listen to it today and you're like, wow, I didn't realize how much music, like royalty was on that particular track. It's incredible when you think about it.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, that's definitely one of my favorite cuts, and I think that song actually saved the album for me. I mean, the album's solid. I don't know. I just think they were repeating themselves a lot. I mean, I don't know what was going on. I mean, something was going on because like no skits. No really deep themes, like the previous album, like De La Soul's Dead, how they covered some serious messages, serious topics. I was disappointed, I'll be honest, because I remember purchasing that tape at that one record store near our high school. I forgot the name of it. You know what I'm talking about, Jason? On Lincoln Avenue and Irving Park.
Oh man,
there used to be a record store right there in the corner. I remember getting that tape and being real disappointed at it, and
wait, was
like
it like
Break It On a lot, but like the album as a whole, I just couldn't. I couldn't get into it that much.
Was it like a very like small like closet type of like?
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
Like I'm foggy. My memory is very foggy.
I mean, it wasn't like it wasn't that. I don't think it was that small, but it was definitely it wasn't like huge or anything. It wasn't like Sound Warehouse or anything.
But yeah, you're just making me think about like those local like DJ tape stores that had like the hottest B96 like mix tapes, and it's like, how can you compete, when you got like conscious hip hop trying to like give you some pearls of wisdom, and then you got these like, like these DJs that are, like about the party scene and just like churning out these like party mixtapes or what have you. Like I wanted to touch on the skits thing because I think it's hilarious. My oldest son today literally just asked me after I picked him up from school, what is a skit? Right. I'm trying to like describe to him like, well, sometimes skits are like in between albums and sometimes skits are in the track. And it's like, I think I hate to sound like old man, like, get off my lawn type stuff, but it's like a dope De La album definitely has skits and they definitely have a message, like you said, but it's almost like you almost have to listen to it the whole way through. And I don't have to preach a message here about like the importance of an album and like the message, because like me, I'm also a film fan first, and it's like, yeah, I understand like when an album is created like a movie, like what's involved in that. But then when you have like the current era where it's not even about an album, it's just about what gets most plays and what gets most replays or whatever, like a skit wouldn't really get replayed, right? I mean, unless somebody's actually like streaming the whole album, I guess.
You got me thinking about skit 1 off of De La Soul's Dead, the hamster penis. And I know the first time they said hamster penis, I was like, I think my mom was in the room, and I had, De La Soul Dead. I had never played it out loud, so I was listening to it in real time. And she was like, what are you listening to? What is this? Because we're gonna open up talking about the corny man and everything like that. So that skit one is hilarious. But I didn't know what to expect. They talk about the anal wart and everything else on that skit. So they were having a good time. I mean, they're like the fathers of those skits, to be honest with you. I mean, you think about the influence on Redman, the Superman Lover, and the rest of that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Daylight did it before everybody else, and it was hilarious because you didn't expect them to be funny, because they just talked about something real serious, but then they get real silly, and then it's like they go back and forth pretty much. They balance off their insanity a little bit and their creativity.
Yeah, they are definitely the kings of the skits. There was like another skit. I think it was on one of the later albums, not the newer ones, maybe. But again, I've been listening to them back to back, so I'm kind of blurred. But Maceo said something like, I think they're all giving shout outs. Like Maceo was like, yeah, I want to give a shout out to that dude that jumped me after the party. You know who you are.
Yeah, that's I know what you're talking about. The art of being jumped.
Yes, the art.
I think that was from AOI Mosaic though.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, just like what Novak's saying, it's like, yeah, they can present you this like plate of seriousness, but like in the same track or the same minute, like flip it on its head and kind of give you that, that playfulness at the same token. So it's I don't think it's like I don't want to say like comical, like Eminem style, where sometimes it's like it's trying to force this like shock value. I think it's just who they are, it's hard to recreate an artist like that. Like re-listening to the whole chronology, like it made me think, I don't know if I would have put them in the same conversation as like Tribe Called Quest, but artistically, like, yeah, I think definitely, because even though Tribe has like albums that are masterpieces, I feel like their artistry at its best is at equal in my eyes.
I mean, you can tell on the albums that that they're just like, you can tell they're friends, and like the one song they had off Bionics that you talked about, Simply Heaven. I mean, that pretty much sums up like their relationship, like their music, and a lot of groups can do that, a lot of groups, it's like they get together, I think, with that initial friendship, it's just like the business takes over and, things get strained, like you saw with A Tribe Called Quest, that documentary showed it all. The Michael Rappaport one, like how things could get strained quick.
But this group, they didn't really strain. I think they were under attack the whole entire time they were making music. That's why I felt bad for Daylight, is that, man, if they had the creative space, let's just say that you ever see that picture when they're signing that deal with Tommy Boy, and Tommy Boy's in the background staring at them like, gotcha. And the whole time you're like, what if they never signed that Tommy Boy deal? Where would they be at today on the music? Because they're definitely, hip hop's Mount Rushmore for me in terms of groups. Because what they did for all these groups, you got to look at, like, Tribe is doing their own thing, but they had to be checking at Daylight, what Daylight was doing and perfecting what they were doing. I think Daylight pretty much spawned a lot of these groups, leaders of the new school. You got Tribe Called Quest, you got the Jungle Brothers, you got all these different groups, man. Even Talib, you said Talib and Mos Def. You think about it, their chemistry is so much like Dave, man. That Dave and Plug One, man. You think about their chemistry was phenomenal, man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can tell they're definitely influences, because I think on Talib's first album, I think it's the first album with High Tech, Reflection Eternal, Train of Thought. I think they had, did they have Dave? Was that Posthumous or Dave on that? I think he was featured. He was featured on that album, on that Reflection Eternal.
I think that might have been Paz on Reflection
Eternal. Paz on, yeah.
Yeah, you can see the influence, because even the way Talib raps on that track, it's like he's paying homage to them, and then he goes back into his flow a little bit. I mean, it's because High Tech's always been funny. High Tech's a funny dude, man. I think Talib and High Tech balance. They're like it's like mild sauce and hot sauce. They balance each other out
Yeah.
But I think I said like with De La, I just feel like they've been under attack the whole time. Even when they did the track with MF Doom and Ghostface Killer on the that's on the grind date. The grind date don't sound like any other album that they ever did. It's so different, different form of De La. The grind date's pretty cool, but it's a different sound compared to all the other albums out there.
Yeah, I didn't have this on my list though, but thinking about it, The Future is probably underrated too. The intro to that album,
Mm-hmm.
man, the way it builds up, Super Dave West, he's always come through with a lot of good cuts for them.
Yeah, you look at that, you look at the man, they birthed a lot of MCs, you got like you think about Buster, you think about Knife Wonder has had a lot to do with them. I mean, it's no Madlib. A lot of people came through that daylight door. I mean, I just, like the Numb Is Nobody, that one snuck out there. That's one of my favorite album covers, by the way.
Got that. I was able to appreciate it more, like I think it initially came out, I was a little like, man, there's not enough De La Soul on it, but like listening to it again, I could kind of understand what they were trying to do with it. I mean, they were trying to break boundaries, try to do something different with it. And I think they succeeded, but I mean, it's kind of bittersweet though, because I still think they could add a little bit more rapping on it, like a little bit more Dave, a little bit more Pasta News, and like I said, it's going to be their last album with the full group. Just coming to that realization, I'm just like, well, who knows? Maybe they recorded stuff, before he passed. So I'm sure they did.
I hope so. I hope it doesn't be like the Tribe Called Quest last album, which I think is still a brilliant album, but that's such a sad album. I mean, that last Tribe album, that song about missing somebody. It felt like they made that song in the process, like they're grieving and they dropped the song. I mean, I think I don't know what De La's gonna do. I mean, because the last track they were together, I was happy about was Feel Good. I love that Gorilla song, that Feel Good song. They were in the zone on that song. And that's the only song they ever won a Grammy on, which is crazy. The most commercial of their songs, they win a Grammy on because the Gorillas in the background.
Oh yeah, for sure. Oh yeah, I have one last one. Let's see. One last one is Down Syndrome from Stakes is High. All out battle, just straight through. The funny thing is though, like I own the US version on vinyl, and that song's not on there for some reason. I don't know why. I don't know why they took it off, but I have a UK version of Stakes is High, and it's on there, and I think it's on the CD version too.
It is.
But I don't know what happened. Yeah, that's definitely underrated song for me.
Well, I can't wait till all their music is going to be dropped next week on March 3rd, and then maybe we'll see if the Stakes is High album that's put on streaming will have the different versions of what you just said, and just other tracks in general. Like I'm very curious to see how everything's going to be put on the streaming services.
I mean, I kind of hope they eventually kind of put out like special editions. I think they will maybe down the line. Like extra tracks or
maybe not. Like I would love to see Clear Lake Auditorium show up somewhere in Bay City. Now that one,
yeah.
I mean, yeah, the white label on that is pretty cool. Like I remember when it came out, I was like, what is this? And so, but it was pretty nice. I mean, you think about, I felt like they were like carrying over a little bit from, it's the B-side to the other album when I looked at that track, that particular record, but it's nice. I hope they do something. I hope they do something with it. I just think that it's taken years to get over all the legal stuff with them.
Correct. Yeah.
And it's kind of sad that Dave is not here to see it get released. and they fought for this for years. So it's like, man, it's kind of bittersweet. It happened like next week you see it show up. Like, I didn't notice they were on streaming services for a long time because I always kept De La stuff on my MP3 players, and it was in my iTunes. So one day my iTunes broke and I had no De La Soul, and I was like, let me go ahead and pull off of Spotify or somewhere. No, that's not happening. So there was nothing there. What's your what's your take on like right now, if you go back to that Clear Lake Auditorium, what's your take on that I Be Blowing track?
I Be Blowing.
That's what I'm trying before Sticks and Stones.
Man, I can't. I'm trying to think. I'm drawing a blank here. I know I've heard it. I haven't heard it in a long time.
Yeah. My take on that one is I like the energy on that track. You know what I mean? Basically, it's like, it's like, with them basically pretty much the thing is, it's like, Maceo man was stepped up on that one. And Maceo is kind of in the background. So I get really happy over Maceo tracks, you know what I mean? Because, I felt like he had a lot to say sometimes, but he just in the background just smiling. I mean, he's like the dude in the background, like, you guys ready to go? But yeah, he showed up on that. Maceo showed up on that track. Maceo Park is pretty nice on that one. It's pretty cool. I just wish that if you get like one more track out there that they have not released or something that you might know that we haven't heard. There's other De La stuff out there. I mean, I try to find as much as I can. I mean, the search for De La has taken me across 3 states so far, looking for their albums, looking for their the white label stuff. It's hard to find.
Because I know that that album, I think a couple of the tracks ended up on Balloon Mind State, right? Is that correct? Like, I think they had Patty Duke on there, and they, and I think they put that. Yeah, I think they put that on the Balloon Mind State album. So it's funny because their new album, I think they released the EP before Anonymous Nobody dropped, and I think it was called like For Your Pain and Suffering. Because the album kept getting pushed back. I remember they were like, yeah, we're gonna release it. And then like 2 months came by and then it didn't come out. So they released some like EP on before that album. And I think it had Trainwreck on there. And then it had like another track with Dave West, which was okay. But from the album, I remember like, the skit before Trainwreck was hilarious. I was like, with that guy like mentoring, the kind of the younger kid, about women. that was funny. And then they kind of like, and then they go into like the full song after that. But I kind of like how they brought that back, that playfulness, on top of speaking, about speaking a message about like how you talk to women and, how you deal with them.
So back to the playfulness thing, I wanted to bring up. I didn't realize that Trugoy is basically yogurt backwards.
It is, yeah.
Like that basically says it all. Like the sound Trugoy sounds so epic and like regal. And like, damn, where'd he get that from? Yogurt, because he likes yogurt. Like, oh, okay. Where's the Dove come from? I didn't really realize where Dove is kind of like. Is it just Dave basically? I don't know. I don't know if I ever put that together.
I don't know where that came from, but you think about it, they had more nicknames. Because I remember, I had a cousin, like, that was like, Plug 2. I'm like, which one is that? Just when they first came out, I'm like,
there's 2.
There's 2. So then they had, there's a lot of nicknames in that group, and then, then you go into other groups, like other collaborations, like the Native Tongues and everything like that. And you look at, I remember the track Buddy. That track Buddy was
yeah.
That's one of
the. I think Jungle Brothers and Q-Tip.
Mm-hmm. They killed that track. That track is awesomely underrated. I mean, Buddy pretty much is modern day Tinder. You think about it, they had the whole dating persona going on. Everybody had a lady and stuff like that. I'm like, where did this come from? Because Me, myself, and I is such the antisocial song. Like all I care about is me, myself, and I, and everybody else can go away. That track to me was like the ultimate independence track. You think about it in terms of being an individual. I mean, even though they're a group, but we're still talking about just me by myself at this time. I mean, it's pretty cool. Years later, my kid sings that song today, and I'm like, go away. Please stop. Leave my childhood alone. So,
Yeah, but Buddy is definitely an unquestionable classic for them. I think there was like a couple of versions too, right? Because like
There was, yeah, you're right.
Jungle Brothers, like I don't know which one was on the album because I've heard different ones at different times.
I think I heard like a remix with like Drez from Black Sheep.
Right.
mm-hmm.
Like, because I think there was like a uncut version with like another MC or two. And I think it was long. I mean, I think the track is like 5 minutes already.
Yep.
So I think they have to trim it.
So No Name, like I love all the underrated tracks you brought up. There was another thing I wanted to talk to you about, which I think you were saying there was a time you saw De La perform live. Before you talk about your experience, there's one quick one that I remember, and I want to say it was like during Common's Hip Hop Festival that he tried to make happen, and I think it was only around for like 2 or 3 years, and it kind of hasn't come back. But De La was there, and I remember Dave kind of almost stopping his show and being angry that one fan was like recording him the whole time, right? And this wasn't too long ago. So obviously in the current era of like, you need to kind of like have your fans record the experience and reshare it and be relevant. It just makes me think of like the playful / seriousness of De La, and that Novak basically telling us that like De La always felt like under attack a lot of ways, and I definitely believe it. Like I definitely saw it in that performance, because once he kind of like had the fan put down their recording device and carried on with the show, then Dave was able to get back into it. But it was kind of just it was just a weird moment that was the only time I've seen them perform live, and that kind of happened in front of me. But yeah, they're always showmen too. Like when they perform live, I would feel like
I think I get the vibe that I mean, from the Anonymous Nobody. I mean, you remember the cover, right? Like it's a guy on stage, and then there's a big crowd in the audience, and then they're throwing stuff at him. Like, and then of course, like the first album, when the first album came out, like I heard it, but like I didn't realize how great it was until like maybe a couple years later. But I think when they came out, I think they were accused of being too soft. Like their style, the way they dressed, and I think that could weigh on you, in general. And I think you see it in like their performances. So yeah, I guess like what you were saying. So I guess I sense like a little frustration. I mean they're different, but like being different can lead to like a lot of backlash. So I think they might have had that through the years. I'm just speculating, but that's kind of what I see.
And I don't want to like paint the whole picture like that's their whole legacy, but I think the context was like they were definitely on some like, get your hands up, feel what I'm feeling, call and response. And then they're just like this one fan, almost just stationary, like I'm recording you and I'm front row. Like obviously y'all know, like when you're at a hip hop show and you're front row, like you're probably standing there for hours and like you're ready to just like, get in the mosh pit and let's go. And like they're just like this one fan just like, just stone cold, like not even into the vibe, right? And it's like I feel like they're part of the hip hop like performance culture where it's like, like you have to kind of like get ready to turn up even when you're in, the fan seat.
I mean, I think they're also old school as well,
Yeah.
I mean, they grew up in the era where, people actually watched the show. Like when I saw them live, I think this was around maybe 2000, 99, 2000, at the House of Blues when they came out with Artificial Intelligence, Mosaic Thump. People didn't have cell phones up. I mean, I was in the front row watching it, and I was waiting for Common to come on, you know, to do the business. It didn't happen. But you know, that's like that's one thing I was looking forward to for that show. But you know, they did all the hits. You know, they did Stakes is High, you know, the Business Without Common, Buddy, their verses. But one thing I remember though, you know, since you were talking about that experience, you know, the audience member, I remember there was a girl maybe like right beside me, and then I forgot what track they were playing, but apparently it has singing on it. So Pasta News is like, he sees his girl, you know, so he just kind of like, you know, she kind of looks like Erykah Badu. She kind of had the Erykah Badu style. So I guess he saw her and he was thinking, okay, maybe she could sing just as good as her. So he kind of squats down. He kind of puts the mic. You know, he actually hands the mic to her and she takes it. And then she just kind of like gives him this blank stare, like, what do I do? And he's like, sing. She didn't sing. And then he like gives her this dirty look. Oh man, it was like this really dirty look. And they just took the mic and he just like walked away. But you know, it just shows you, I guess, like, you know, the seriousness that they put into their craft. I mean, yes, they're playful, you know, and then you know that's what they show in their music. But you know, there's also a level of seriousness, you know, for their craft, which you have to respect.
When hip hop, art, and schizophrenia meet, that is definitely De La in a nutshell. I mean, even like Pasta News, like again, it sounds so like epic and regal too, but like when you flip it, what is sound sop? I still don't know what that is either. What does it mean? Are we even supposed to know what it means? Are we even supposed to like care?
We might find out that his name ain't even Dave. You might find that out one day. I think they're like a parody on hip hop almost. You think about it, like even when they sampled, yeah, you know that's Knee Deep from George Clinton on P Funk on Me Myself,
Yeah.
Me Myself and I, and you hear it basically. You know, they interviewed George Clinton a few years ago. He said, "I made the most money off of them." He said, "I made $100,000 off of them." And thank you, De La. Nobody else I made any money off, but De La paid me. So De La basically said, "Yeah, we took it, we sampled it." That song's been sampled over hundreds of times. That's the only group that paid him $100 grand for it. That's it. Yeah, I mean it's amazing. I mean, but yeah, you're right. I mean, they take it really serious, but they take the best samples I've ever seen out there. Their samples are very creative. You got to find them. It's not like when Kanye samples something, you know where it came from. So with these guys, you got to really listen to it. They play a lot of the song, but they layer it so different, basically. It's almost kind of like what Dilla does. Dilla plays it in reverse. They play it forward and they take something out of it, they take a layer off of it, and they blend it really nice. And then they put their own harmony on it, which covers it up really good.
Yeah, since you were, that's interesting what you were talking about Dilla, JD. If you listen to the, I think the Far Side track Drop, I think the sample for that, if you listen to the original, you couldn't tell at all. I think that's what he did. He played it backwards, and it's funny, you know. And then the actual video is them, you know. It's like a video being played backwards. So maybe that was a riff on the actual song, you know, off the sample, like how it was made. I mean, I didn't really realize that until like years later.
I mean, pass me by. Think about that one. I mean, they chopped it. Basically, you think about DJ Screw, right? And you think about what they did when they slowed down and pass me by. Basically, the original of that song is faster than that. So they slowed it down to the point it's unrecognizable. Then they sped it up. They sped it up when you know, when certain bass lines drop. Yeah, Dilla was really good at it. I think De La was really good at it too, because you find so much. They sampled a lot of people. They got some lawsuits out there. But the lawsuits, you go to court, you really got to prove it with them, basically, because they were really good at sampling. That musicality made up for anything you thought. It was like a whole new track when they got it. Pretty much the best way to put it with De La. They changed it so much. I mean, Dilla was really good at it. De La was better, I think, at it. Dilla got caught a few times. De La got caught, and they pay their toll, and then the artist gives them a high five and said, "Thank you for making me relevant again." So that's pretty much how they work.
Yeah, it was also the same real quick. Jay-Z, Bring It On, produced by Premier. I think I was reading, like, to this day, that no one knows the sample except Premier, because he won't give it away because he doesn't want to get sued. But no one can find that sample, and that's a brilliant song. I mean, the whole thing, the whole thing is just like everything. I mean, I believe that's probably one of the best, one of my favorites, I think, of all time. I mean, I don't know if you guys agree, but that song hits hard.
It's nice. It's nice. Funny you should say that. I don't know where the hell that came from. I listened to that track hundreds of times. And with Jay, there's a fundamental connection. Some artists from the past, it could be Nina Simone. It's always somebody from that era, basically. I think like with the vinyl, that's the reason one of the reasons I got into vinyl, because I felt like these family lineages, like between the Beach Boys and what the Beatles are supposed to sound like, and the Pet Sounds is probably one of the most sampled vinyls out there in history. There's a lot of hip hop people that sample Pet Sounds from the Beach Boys. It's incredible how you hear it so many different ways. Like you think about like you think about the APMD samples out there. They sample people before them, and so on. I mean, it's brilliant. I mean, that's the thing that makes hip hop so fascinating right now, is the fact that you gotta have a musical ear to understand where it came from. And you probably singing the hook anyway, because you heard it when you were a kid. Then it came back 360 on you. You got older, and you're like, I know this song from somewhere. Like most stuff, Miss Fat Booty. If you ever listen to that song as a kid, I remember the originals of that because my mom used to clean the house playing it. So I had the harmony already. And so one of my guys looked at me like, why do you like that song? Like, because I used to clean the house playing the originals of that. So
yeah, it was Aretha Franklin, right?
Pretty much. So I mean, he made it hotter. I mean, it's not like what Ye did with Through the Wire. Through the Wire, we knew what the hell that was within the first 30 seconds. I was like, yeah, she ain't gonna be happy about this. So, and she hates that song, which is the crazy thing about it. She says the worst version of her song ever. And I'm just like, wow, don't play it. That's why you don't hear Through the Wire anymore. Because she basically will sue if it's played. She doesn't like the fact that he remixed it.
No Name, since you invoked DJ Premier, which is probably my all-time favorite producer as far as hip hop goes. He was actually on a skit. I don't know, say skit. He was on the intro of a track in Grind Date, and it basically says, he's basically saying, I'm gonna read this off real quick. Y'all don't care anymore about this hip hop, man. I mean, how far we all pump motherfuckers go for 15 seconds of fame? You microphone popcorn ass fools. So I mean, it's like, I thought it was kind of interesting. Like, obviously, Primo is a validation of hip hop in my eyes, but he didn't even produce that beat. He just jumps on there to say that, and he's out. And it's like, as iconic as his voice is, and he doesn't really get on the mic a lot. Like, I think Maceo also has that kind of iconic gruff whenever he was on the mic too, spitting spitting his comedy, or just spitting whatever was on top of his mind. But y'all are making me think about, like, who are some of the best, like, producers that would let De La shine. I mean, the obvious answer is Prince Paul.
Oh yeah, of course.
But I mean, do y'all got any go-tos? And then I guess I also wanted to quickly mention, like, I hope we'll see an AOI 3. I don't know if we ever will. I think their record label is called AOI, so maybe in their hearts that's kind of like the part 3 of the the artificial intelligence, like, legacy living on in some aspects. But are there any other, like, producers that you felt like brought out the best? Like, I also felt like the Gorillas, and they were easy. They knew how to tap into the De La sound, I thought.
Yeah, of course, like what I mentioned earlier, Pete Rock for sure. It's like like that Memory Of track was just like brilliant.
Yeah, that was on the latest album, right?
Yeah, the Anonymous Nobody.
Yeah.
And just like the harmonies, and Stay Away as well. You know, I just kind of wish they would have worked with him more. It's kind of like, I don't know if it was maybe it was a cost factor. You know, the fact that you had to, you know, I mean, you never know. Like maybe it was attempted. I know there was a lot of, I'm sure there was a lot of artists that wanted to work with certain producers, but you know, I mean, like how much was Premiere charging, you know, back in like, you know, in his peak, you know, like peak Gangstar days, you know, was 100,000 track or I mean, you never know, you know, they have labels too, and the label says no, like, you know, because I was watching Elder Sensei from Artifacts. You know, he was talking about that first album, which was classic, Between a Rock and a Hard Place. And I think the label, I think it was Big Beat at the time they were on. They were asking like what producers they wanted to pick for the album. And then they were like Pete Rock, Premiere, and then the label said, "No, those guys are too expensive." So you know, so that's why they picked, you know, like Buck Wild, you know, who was brilliant. I mean, that was brilliant. That the beats on that album were just sick. You know, T-Ray, I think, was on that as well. But man, they gave him some heat for sure.
Don't forget about Spearhead X. I don't know if you remember him, basically, pretty much. You know, it's funny because he's out of Atlanta. So you got an Atlanta producer working on the De La albums, basically. He did some work for them on Grind Date and a couple other places. And like it's hilarious that, you know, that whole Atlanta sound, basically, you know, he kind of worked, you know, he kind of worked with De La, but you couldn't hear that, you know, because that guy does some trap and some other stuff out there. But when he got with De La, he kind of changed again, or I think they might have changed the producer in the studio. I think they're really good at forcing producers to get inside their boat with them, pretty much. You know, if you think about Pete Rock, you think about what they did with Prince Paul, because they were working with Prince Paul again last year before Dave got sick. So they made new music. So I guess I'm curious to see how the evolution worked, because you know when you come back to a producer years later, you think about Snoop and Dre. So Snoop went away from Dre like for years. He came back to Dre, and you know it's like they picked up like they never were apart. They never were apart all those years. So I think whatever they did with Paul recently, was going to probably drop this year, posthumous at this point, which I hate at this point, but it's going to sound really good, because you know, when people don't work together for each other for a long time and get back together, that energy comes back together. It's like when we go on the pod, and all that, you know, we want to go vinyl. I see what you got. If that excitement level comes up, I think that we're due for a good album right now. I just hope it's not like what Tribe did a couple years ago after Fife passed away. Great album, but man, it's hard to listen to that stuff knowing that this artist is never going to record again, or
Yeah, oh yeah, for sure. I mean, that's how I feel about In the Anonymous Nobody.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and that last track, you know, like I was listening to that in my car on the way home. Yeah, I think it's called is it called Hereafter?
Mm-hmm.
And you know, and that just hit me, you know, just because I think Dave was talking about death, you know, he's talking about death and like recovery from death, you know, and remembering the good times, you know. It's just like, and then now he's gone, you know, so that just kind of like, I think that resonated with me really deep, you know. And I think we've all like gone through like death in our lives, you know, and just like I think that verse was probably one of his best verses of all time. I think definitely very personal, you know. It's just like, you know, it's just like yeah, it was great, you know. It's just unfortunate that, you know, he's not around anymore.
But you know, I think that's probably like a good segue to kind of like weigh in on our final thoughts on De La, the legacy of, you know, Dave, and just everything. And did y'all have any kind of like any top of mind thoughts that kind of came up in our discussion, or anything else that you weren't able to bring up?
I'll say No Name. You go first on this one.
Oh, just like on any like final thoughts on how I feel about the group, or
Yeah, and
Yeah.
quickly, No Name. I also wanted to bring up when we were talking about producers, like I love that you brought up Pete Rock because whenever I think of the No Name sound, I definitely go to Pete Rock in a lot of aspects. So he definitely has the hip hop sound, whether it's with De La or anybody. But I was talking to you about Grind Date, I think not long ago, and then for some reason my young one, when he was listening to all the De La songs I was playing, he was like vibing with Shopping Bags. He was like, hey, play that song again, play that. And then you were the one who told me like, oh man, that's a Madlib beat. And I was like, wait, Madlib, what? And I had to look it up. Like, I think Madlib was only on 2 tracks of that album. But again, it kind of goes to like the whole what if scenarios. What if De La was able to work with like Gorillas again for a full length EP, or Pete Rock or Madlib, or just whoever, like whatever producer they were able to kind of work with again. You even like were sending me photos today of like them in the studio with Prince Paul, right? Like not long ago.
correct? Yeah, I think it was last like June. They had a picture of Prince Paul in the studio with Drez, a Black Sheep
With the gray hair.
with the gray hair. Yeah, is that the one you saw too?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, and I look forward to the new material. And yeah, I mean, like Madlib would have been nice, because it's like, if I would have heard that beat before knowing Madlib produced that, I would never know that was Madlib. Because it's just like, so it's like, I guess you could say De La maybe brought out the best in Madlib as well. Was working with pioneers like that. And I think it's like vice versa. With Pete Rock as well. That beat, that Memory Of beat, is probably the best Pete Rock beat I've heard in like years. For a long time. And he has a lot of classics. Like he has a lot of heat to his resume on the production side.
I would say that, one thing to take away from this conversation is that, you're right. Like when you listen to these artists like years later, and they still resonate with you. We got to do a better job giving these people their flowers while they're here. I think that's the biggest takeaway I take from hip hop lately, is that even with the DMS situation, you get into you have other artists that passed away. I mean, I'm finding joy in music in weird places that I always enjoyed that certain line, like stakes is high. First time you listen to that track, you're like, man, these dudes they talking about get your life together, basically. And like nobody's gonna give you anything, when they start breaking down metaphorically what you got to do to be successful and everything. I mean, the stakes side of me always is to get me going track. Like if I'm having a bad day at work, I'm listening to that track because you can hear the passion in their voice that you got to do better, you got to stand up, you got to make it happen. And then you listen to something else, like I listened to that Tribe track, Lost Somebody the other day, and that you think about Dave, you think about all the hip hop, ancestors we have right now. You think about like how powerful these people were. I mean, we experienced some really good music. I mean, it's kind of sad today that influential, is going to be somebody that we got to use subtitles on understanding what he was saying at this point. So I mean, I'm not trying to diss today's hip hop, but it's like, man, where's that passion at these days? I mean, you got to go back to the De La album, the Tribe album. You got to go back to an old Buster album just to feel that energy and passion again lately. Or even young Biggie. You think about Biggie's energy before Puffy. I'm gonna be nice about contaminated big, but with the I Want to Make You Dance era. But it's hard, man. Even when Common burst on the scene. I mean, De La is always going to be great to me, as Common is, as other artists is. I mean, just appreciate them, give them their flowers now, because nobody's guaranteed tomorrow. In terms of what can happen next at this point.
Because I remember after Five died, I mean, I was hurt over that, and like I was like, it was a lot of like what ifs, like what if they were able to patch that up sooner, like all the beef with Q-Tip and with the group in general, like why create an album, and then he passes away, So it was
Yeah,
kind of
No
like a little
Name.
bit bitter. It was kind of like bittersweet. You know, I'm glad
Mhm.
I'm glad they came out with an album, but you know, I kind of wish it was under better circumstances. You know, not like, you know, when he passes away and then they come out with an album.
Yeah, No
But
Name. I'm glad you brought that up because you're the first one to kind of like give me that perspective. Like I thought it was interesting. Novak was tapping into the sadness of the last Tribe album. Like for me, I was just so happy that the album saw the light of day. So I kind of it was like wish fulfillment to me.
Mhm.
But I remember that was your first reaction to No Name. You're like, isn't it kind of like ironic that it happened after Fife was gone? Because like being kind of like Q-Tip and the perfectionist that he is, and he's kind of like always had his kind of feud with Fife in a lot of ways. Like, would it have even happened if Fife was still here, right?
well, that's why I think, you know, I think they kind of knew, you know, maybe they knew he only had a certain amount of time. I mean, this is just all speculation. But it's like, why patch it up when, you know, when he was about to leave? You know, it's like, yeah, I mean, that's cool, but you know, it's like, you know, why can't we do this like years later and just, you know, and just put our egos down? But you know, tying into that, the reason why I brought that up was, you know, after Five died, I was like, man, at least we got De La. At least we got De La, you know, to carry the torch. You know, one of the last, you know, remaining groups, historic hip hop groups that are still around, that are active and still doing material. But you know, after Dave died, I was like, man, you know, like, you know, it hurt for real. You know, it hit me deep.
Because you gotta think what's left right now in terms of groups. I mean, I mean, yeah, it's not a lot out there. You know, I mean, when DMC, with the Run DMC thing, when Jam Master Jay got murdered,
Mm.
that blew up the DMC dynamic. You know, when you see them perform now in shows, it's weird to see the two-man front and no Jam Master Jay, and you're like, wow. And that's a big hole. I mean, I think like it's just like you said before, you got to like I do agree with you. Why I made the album, that's kind of how I felt about the Tribe. I was bittersweet over that Tribe album. The cover's dark, the cover basically with the alien on the cover and everything like that. And that's Q-Tip playing on his art, Q-Tip playing on his artisticness and everything. But like I don't think that album ever got released. If Fife doesn't die, Q-Tip doesn't drop that album. Because I think Fife would have fought him to say that's not my best work, or he said like, "Hey, I'm not 100% invested in that situation." And I think that's what would have probably happened, but you never know. I think he might have had like, okay, this guy's got 2 more weeks left. Hey guys, I got something hot. Let's wait. And then when it happened, that's he's on SNL dropping, doing the title track, We the People. And I'm at home watching this, just like this is too soon, man. He passed, it happened real quick. He was on SNL, he was performing everywhere, and I'm just sitting there like, okay, Q-Tip, but I guess everybody grieves differently, or some people don't grieve at all. I don't know, but that's a weird one. I think De La is going to be very quiet for a while, and then they'll appear. I don't think it's going to be like they're going to show up on SNL next week, but who knows? Stranger things have happened.
Yeah, like I definitely am mourning De La too. Like just playing a lot of their tracks back to back these last few weeks have been kind of my grief session. But I think it is bittersweet that their streaming songs will kind of see the light of day. I think they were finally freed from Tommy Boy to kind of like own their masters. So I mean, there is some like light at the end of the tunnel. This hip hop story of them being attacked left and right. But yeah, I mean, I know we're kind of riffing on a lot of like the hip hop of yesteryear. No, every time I bring this topic up, you're like, I don't think it's gonna happen. But P Rock and CL Smooth, is it ever gonna happen? The reunion. Speaking of hip hop, feuds that are never ending to the grave, it seems.
I don't know, man. I mean, it just seems like it was funny. Remember when I met you and Vance, and we caught Pete Rock and CL on their reunion tour up in Chicago. Forgot the place.
Was it
Forgot the name
Reggie's
of the club.
or
Was it?
I think it was somewhere downtown nearby Reggie's.
Yeah, it was south side.
That was Reggie's.
We missed Camp Low. Camp Lo was with them too as well. Also, Pete Rock produced that nice album of theirs. That 40 blocks from Tiffany's. Is it 40 or 50 blocks? No. But the second one, yeah, he did a nice album. He came through with that one. And I remember my friend was saying, "Man, we better see him." I'm like, "Why?" He's like, "Because they might break up again. You never know." And I started laughing at the time because I'm like, it happened. There was definitely some, there's some underlying issues, that maybe didn't get resolved. I mean, maybe they went on tour and they still had issues, but they saw how much they were gonna get for it, so they kind of agreed, maybe.
I mean,
Yeah, like Pete Rock doesn't let go of a grudge, man. I think I'm not sure if I remember this story incorrectly, but I thought last year there was some dispute between him and Nas, and I think like Pete Rock just got off of social media. He's like, "That's it, I'm done."
Yeah. I think it was for that track, right? The World Is Yours. No, did you produce The World Is Yours, the original?
Yeah,
I know Q-Tip did the remix. Didn't Q-Tip do the remix of World Is Yours?
Yeah. He did. I mean, like, I know he tried. He tried to sue Nas, and Nas tried to counter sue, and all that stuff went down. I mean, it's all about writing credits in that situation. It's never, like when Illmatic, every time Illmatic is talked about being one of the greatest albums every time, it makes Pete Rock get further away from Nas. He sees it like, how dare you talk about this great album? I'm responsible for that track. So, I mean, they've been throwing shade at each other for years. That's why I think Pete Rock holds grudges and lawsuits. He sues a lot of people, over things that he feels that he contributed to and he get paid justly for. And I think Nas doesn't care. Khalees is still suing Nas. He don't care. Nas, he might settle, he might not settle. He just tie it up in court. He's got the money to keep the lawsuit going. Pete Rock ain't got the money to fight with Nas in court. So, he's hoping that the court of public opinion is going to make Nas feel bad about it and settle with him. I don't think Nas doesn't care enough at this point. He's doing King's Disease like 4, 5, and 6 right now, so he doesn't really care.
And I heard there's like a Premiere and Nas project.
Yes,
that they're working on. Woo.
I want that
the track off Premiere, off that Premiere compilation.
Ooh,
that's
awesome.
Man, that was heat.
Get him away from Hit Boy. If we could just hide Hit Boy for about a year, we can get that album done.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. Hopefully, whenever they're done with it.
Yeah. Hopefully it comes before King's Disease 4 or whatever the hell is coming. I think we're on 3 on King's Disease. I lost track.
We're on 3 right now.
Okay.
Too many
the king has died 3 times. So I'm just
there's a lot of diseases going on.
He's had COVID. No, that's TB.
That's a lot. It's a lot of viruses.
He's got some variants. Oh man.
But no, I think Pete Rock and CL Smooth. That's a bad breakup. I mean, they need each other like socks and shoes need Pepsi and Ice need each other, man. They need to get back together.
Yeah, it's funny because like I think off the first Soul Survivor album, I think they played a skit off the Wake Up Show. I think it was Sway, and he was talking about that. He said, "You guys stop playing. You guys better get back together." Do you remember that skit off Soul Survivor? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And the tracks they did off that, I mean that whole album was heat, but the 2 Pete Rock tracks off Soul Survivor, the first one, were like the best ones.
I agree. I totally agree.
Yeah. So it's like, yeah, you're right. In terms of like, they need each other. Unfortunately, it's just a shame. Like 2 men can't work it out.
And get more heat like Troy and stuff again would be nice, but man. I mean, Reminisce still is the hardest track.
Oh
man, they were on fire on that track, man. Mecca and the Soul Brother, man. That album, that vinyl to me is one of my favorite pieces of vinyl. My kids saw it the other day and go, "What's this old car in the front? And who are these guys with leather coats on?" I'm like, "That's Pete Rock and CL Smooth." They go sit down. I know Pete Rock is. Who's the CL Smooth guy? I might go to sleep.
Yeah, I gotta pull it out now because since you brought it up, right? So,
Oh, you got a sign.
Right
Oh man, that is nice.
Yeah. That's the original too. So
I know.
I got lucky.
You got very lucky there on that one, man.
I got lucky on that one.
That was a source of argument in my house every time my kid picks it up. Which one? So I know who Pete Rock is. Who's the other guy? That's CL Smooth. He's not around, Daddy. I'm like, go to sleep. Yeah.
Yeah, that's dope. That's dope.
That's real dope.
Like I was thinking, like, I think even Pete Rock produced, what's the other urban legend, which is not a best kept secret? Like, I think he produced Juicy for Biggie. And I think Pete Rock admitted that he was heated at the time, but now he's kind of like past it. But I don't want to go dark here, but I'm hoping that it's not going to be a situation where like CL passes and it's like, oh, okay, let's make this reunion happen, you know, like on some cute tip type stuff.
He wanted to kill Puff over Juicy. I know about that whole situation. It's bad. He's supposed to been, it's, you know, you've never seen Puffy and Pete Rock in the room at the same time. And you've never seen it. Won't happen. I mean, I think he might take him out. Big was really connected to Pete Rock. You know, you think about Big L and everybody and that, you know, that whole, like the whole group over there. A lot of dark stuff. You know, Big L is still to me is one of the ones that we never saw mature. We only got 2 albums of Biggie. We got 900 Tupac albums, you know, but you know, not a lot of Biggie. Mr. C is holding on to Biggie stuff. You know how that went down, and then you know, we lost K Slay, which that probably is his own podcast, to be honest with you. You know, he left a lot. Oh man, there's a lot to be desired on that K Slay relationship with artists. A lot of controversy, a lot of good stuff too.
Yeah, a lot of what ifs, definitely. I mean, in terms of Big L too, because I heard he was going to sign with Rockefeller, with Jay-Z, shortly before he passed. Came out with that really good single off his label, Flamboyant. What was that called? Ebonics.
Mm-hmm.
Man, that was fire.
Yeah, a certain
sure.
Yeah, a certain Rock Nation artists Rock Nation owners started rapping like him. You know, oh man. I mean, you think about, you know, somebody steals somebody's whole cadence, man. Incredible. I mean, yeah, he's good at it. He's good at it. I saw one recently, not to get off the subject, where you had Chris and Neef, you know, from Philly, the Philly style. Jay took the whole Philly style and spit it better than them. There's this one Jay-Z track out there where Chris and Neef finished the words. That's how scary it was. It was like, yeah, that's the way we spit it in the studio that day. He just made them stand up and rap for him. Just, you know, give me your best rhymes. And he'll memorize them. The next week he come in and spit them. That's what people said. That's the studio legend, is that Jay can memorize everything you say to him in the studio. He can take the whole style, perfect it, cadence and everything, and spit it back. I mean, like, you know, it's kind of like when you keep young rappers around you. You know, you pretty much, you know, like De La and stuff like that. They got their own style, but you know, these new rappers, man, the new great rappers, you know, they could take it. They keep younger rappers around them and stay young. It's like the whole Francis Ford Coppola, Bram Stoker thing, basically. You know, you know, through the seas of time, basically, I'm gonna take your style, I'm gonna spit it back out there. But you know, there's a lot to that thing. I mean, the whole Jay-Z thing, you get into that. He's around this time period too. You know, this Wine Sophie era was going on around this time period when De La was dropping music. But you know, maybe one day we do a show and we talk about all the parallels. What artists were doing when certain artists were making classic albums. What was Pete Rock doing when this dropped? What happened when Jay dropped this album? Who was in power at this point in time? I mean, it's crazy. You think about it. Yeah,
it's definitely a lot of different directions you can take that.
Mm-hmm.
Well, yeah, man, a lot of ifs. We definitely got to tease some more discussions and more podcast episodes. But
For sure.
yeah, I mean, I definitely want to, like, thank No Name. Yeah, thank you for joining us. We definitely got to have you back in the show. It's
Oh yeah,
been,
for sure.
it's
Yeah.
been,
Thanks for having me. I had a great
yeah, man.
time. I'm definitely a newbie to these podcasts, but
You're
I had a
natural,
great
man.
time doing this one.
You're a natural, man, at this. I mean, yeah, definitely. Thank you for coming on. We gotta do a what if show. You got me want to do like the what if Marvel show. What if this, what if this DJ collaborated with this person?
Oh,
There's a
that would be
lot.
nice.
Yeah,
Oh man, that would be dope.
I think about what if Amy Winehouse and Big L collaborated. Like what Nas did with Amy Winehouse, after she passed away. I think about this type of stuff. Like, sometimes, man, if that's a joke out there. If God made Biggie rap like Nas, it'd been too good, and that's not fair. So he had to give him some type of flaw at this point.
I mean, you were talking about. You said Premier did a skit, right, for De La,
Yep.
for one of the albums.
Yep.
I mean, man, what if they actually worked together, like just one track? Man, that would be nice.
I mean, if anything, this whole discussion has taught me is like the what if scenario plays in my head more so like, what if these artists never met De La, right? So like, Lib is at the height of his powers right now. What if he never met De La at all? And you can say the same thing for a lot of artists that have kind of crossed De La's soul path. Like, what if they never met? What if they kind of understood their craft? Like, it was almost kind of like, I don't know. It was sort of like fate, right? Because I mean, like, Novak, when you're saying like a rapper like Jay-Z couldn't replicate a De La sound if he could or if he tried.
Right.
And, still, even though the industry beat them up in a lot of ways, like, they still couldn't take away their spirit. They still couldn't take away, the essence of what De La Soul was.
What if you got a Kendrick and De La Soul track? Oh man.
Nice. Oh yeah.
See, Novak, you wanna close us out, man? It's been a pleasure.
Definitely been a pleasure, man. Definitely want to thank you, No Name, for coming on. Big appreciation there. You got me right now stuck in the middle of like a Marvel like hip hop moment. The whole night I'm be building teams in my head of like
Different lineups, collaborating.
Like Marvel Ultimate Alliance. Like, let me get my fire team together and put them together and let them go burn the village down. I mean, it's like Voltron almost, the way you put these artists together right now. But yeah, definitely want to thank you for coming on. We definitely
thank you. I had a great time speaking with you both. I enjoyed this discussion. And
we gotta stay a vinyl connection, man. I got it. Yeah, you got a lot of stuff in the background. I definitely have some of that. There's more stuff I need to find out there. We definitely got to collaborate on the vinyl searching, man.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, it's like I learned from you, man. Like that Raekwon stuff. I had no idea. So it kind of gives me some sort of like something to look forward to. Because for a long time I'm thinking like, man, there's no good hip hop. What happened?
Don't buy Future on vinyl. I did that recently, but anyway. Yeah, I tried to listen to Future on vinyl, man. I felt like somebody's dad. I was like, what is this? This melody's kind of interesting, but what is he rapping about? Oh, drugs. Okay, anyway, let me turn this off. Anyway, I want to thank everybody for listening. I want to thank you, No Name, for coming on the show. Definitely check us out wherever podcasts are available. We're on Spotify, we're on iTunes, we're everywhere out there. Definitely, everybody go out and listen to something great. Kill a hip hop beef if you can. If you got one of these artists that we know are fighting right now, pull them to the side and say we need more music. We gotta stop some of this bad hip hop. But anyway, thank you for listening to us, and everybody have a great day.